What's the story, Morning Glory? What's the word, Hummingbird? Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City reunion part two review. So we are talking about the event that Lisa's son was throwing for the foster kids of Utah. And Lisa had clearly lied about whether or not her son had put together the guest list because Jen Shaw was not invited. And so the question was, why wasn't Jen invited? During the season, Lisa said that her son had put together the guest list. But on the reunion, she said that her son did not put together the guest list. So I have a tendency to believe that her son did not put together the guest list because he's a kid. I don't think it matters to him who shows up or who doesn't show up. And I don't think he has the wherewithal or the care on whether or not Jen Shaw is invited. So I'm pretty sure he had nothing to do with the guest list. She was just trying to use her son as an excuse of why she herself didn't invite Jen. And I think it's really crummy of Lisa to throw her own son under the bus when it came to why a particular guest was not invited. So Lisa apologized for putting the whole disclaimer thing when she said that she loved Jen. She apologized saying, I didn't mean to put a disclaimer, whatever, whatever. We know you're lying. So they talk about Meredith's father's funeral. Meredith's father's memorial, because when they were on the Splinter van, I think they call it, this is when the feds came on the van looking for Jen Shaw. And no, not yet. This is when Jen left because she said that her husband was sick in the hospital or something. So during that moment, Lisa immediately called Jen, and she's the one that said, she immediately called Meredith, and she's the one that said, I know you're at your father's memorial. Or no, she didn't say that to Meredith. She said that to the other girls because Meredith said, I'm with family right now. Or Lisa said, I know you're with family right now. Something to that effect. The word memorial was never said when they were on the phone with each other. It was only said when Lisa was talking to the other women in the van and said, Meredith is at her father's memorial. It was totally Lisa that brought up the whole thing about Meredith being at her father's memorial. But for whatever stupid reason, Andy assumed that Lisa had said, I know you're at your father's memorial. So he asked, which she did say that, so it wasn't a stupid reason. She did say that. She was the one that mentioned the word memorial. But Andy asked Meredith, why didn't you just correct her? And Meredith said, when I was on the phone with her, she did not say that. She said, I know you're with family. Correct. So, yeah. So there was nothing to correct. I was mad at Andy because Andy obviously is not paying attention to the show whatsoever, because I think later on in the season, it was shown that it was never Meredith that said she was at her father's memorial. Nothing was said to Meredith about her being at her father's memorial. It was always she was with her family. And that was clarified in the season itself on an episode that Andy didn't watch or didn't pay attention to. So Andy's like, well, why didn't you just correct her? And Meredith was like, there was nothing to correct because she didn't tell me that. What she said to me was, I know you're with family right now. She never said the word memorial. And then Meredith was like, I would never answer the phone if I was in the middle of my father's memorial. Like, how stupid is that? And I think Andy realized that he was in the wrong, but he's too arrogant to admit that he was wrong. So Lisa was so wrong on so many levels, and Andy also looked absolutely stupid, and he's not paying attention to the shows that he's producing. So then they take a break for lunch. When they took the break for lunch, Lisa tried to tell Meredith something. She came to sit next to Meredith and was whispering in her ear, and Meredith wasn't having it. And so Lisa, she goes to her dressing room, and then she just starts ranting to production about how they set her up when she had her tirade about Meredith. That it was all a setup. Okay, those words came out of your mouth, and you knew that you had a mic on because you are on a reality reality TV show and there's a camera crew there. They're not going to, a camera crew is not going to be recording you without you being mic'd. You think they just show up and don't mic you? You knew you had a mic on, and you knew that this was all going to be on tape or on the show. You knew it. Lisa, stop. So then they talk about Mary. They talk about Mary's mean text that she sends to everybody. Mary even sent mean text to Meredith, her BFF. But it wasn't really a mean text. It was just Mary expressing how she was upset that Meredith didn't check on her when Jenny threw the glass at her. So I didn't think that was a mean text at all. I don't know why Meredith raised her hand when Andy asked the ladies, has anyone received a mean text from Mary? That wasn't a mean text. So then they talk about why nobody stood up for Heather when Mary body shamed her. And it was just a whole bunch of excuses of why nobody stood up for Heather. Because these group of women, when it comes to Heather being body shamed, they can't relate. They have no idea what it feels like. They can't relate. So I think that's the real reason why they didn't stand up for her. So then, and then also maybe because Heather herself, she puts up such a tough exterior that maybe they felt like they did need to stand up for her, like she could handle her own. So then Jenny and Whitney, they believe that Mary's church is Jen Shaw and Whitney believe that Mary's church is a cult. So Jenny asks, why do we keep talking about Mary's church? Girl, because it's interesting. Okay, this woman runs a church. People are talking about the damn church. Yes, we're going to talk about the church because it's interesting. What do you have going on? I mean, what does she even do what does Jenny Wood even do for a living? I have no idea. Yes, what do you mean? Why would there's allegations all over the place that she's running a cult, that her congregation thinks that she's God, that they're praising her instead of praising God. This is interesting stuff. This is juicy stuff. So shut up, Jenny Wynn. So because Cameron, and then someone said, well, Cameron became a part of the storyline because he was at the foster kids event that Lisa's son was throwing. And so Cameron was there. Cameron was invited, and he was definitely invited for a purpose. So that's another reason why we're talking about Mary's church, because a member of her congregation is on this TV show who says that he had to leave the church because he felt like he was being taken advantage of. And he had a lot of things to say about Mary, and Mary is a member of this cast, so that's why we're talking about it. And then Heather says, well, y'all question the Mormon church, so why not question Mary's church? Yeah, we're going to talk about both. Thank you, Heather. Yes, we're going to talk about it all. We're going to talk about Mary's church. We're going to talk about the Mormon church. All of this is interesting stuff, and I want to hear about it. Then we find out that Cameron had died since being on the show. He died from a brain tumor. And Lisa got really emotional about that. She started crying. And then Meredith asked Lisa if Cameron was on the board of foster care, because I think that's the whole reason of why Lisa invited Cameron is because she knew that Cameron was going to talk about Mary's church. He was going to say some very off the wall things about Mary's church. That was the whole purpose. She was just using this man to bring Mary down. And she knew that, Cameron was going to talk to Meredith because she made it a point to introduce the two together, to introduce them to each other. And then as soon as Cameron told Meredith about Mary's church, Meredith was going to go back and tell the other women, and it was going to spread like wildfire. So everything was very, very calculated, very, very manipulative. So Lisa saved us with all of the, I didn't know. So Meredith asked Lisa if Cameron was on the board of foster care because she had to have a reason of why she would invite him. So Lisa had made it seem like he was invited because he was on the board of this whole Utah foster care organization. And Whitney and Heather were like, no, he is not on the board of anything. He is just a supporter. He just contributes money, or I guess either contributes money or contributes his time. He's just a supporter. He's not on the board. He's not on the committee. And Lisa said, yes. Whitney and Heather said, no, he's not on the board. And then Lisa said, well, he was acting as a board member and he was in the process of becoming a board member. Lisa is so full of lies. And then when she gets caught, she creates more lies. It's just unbelievable to me how much this woman lies. I mean, this is like on the verge of being pathological, where she lies for no reason. Just didn't you invited the guy? You had your own reasons of why you invited him. You didn't have to create this, complete falsehood about him being on the board of directors or on whatever it was, on a board member. It's just insane how much this woman lies. I just can't believe it. And she lies to the point where I don't even think she herself realizes that she's how much she lies. So Whitney believes that Lisa planted Cameron there to give Meredith information about Mary's church to spread to the group, of course. And then Meredith said, well, Lisa, did Cameron give Mary $300,000 when he mortgaged his house? Lisa said yes. And then Meredith said, well, you told me off camera that he didn't. You told me that it was only 10% of that. And then Lisa says, well, I may have gotten the numbers wrong. And then Meredith said, but you didn't correct it to the group. So she told a lie, another lie, saying that Cameron mortgaged his house to give $300,000 to Mary's church. Then off camera, she corrects herself to Meredith, if even what she said, even if that part was true when she corrected herself. But then she never came back to the group to correct herself to the group to say, look, it wasn't 300,000, it was only 10% of that, which I think would be 30,000 or maybe 3,000. I don't know. I'm not good at math. And Whitney says, you knew what the truth was, that he didn't actually do that, but you let me just run with it, because Whitney was going around telling everybody that Cameron mortgaged his house to contribute to Mary's church to make Mary look even worse. So Whitney said that Cameron told her that Mary's congregation believed that Mary was God. Whitney believes that Mary and Cameron had an affair. I was like, what? And according to Whitney, according to Whitney, Cameron believed that Mary took advantage of him because he was younger than her. I mean, I don't remember that part being on the show at all. But I was like, what? No, no way. No way. I'm not going to be so quick to believe that. And of course, we don't have Mary there to defend herself. So there's probably going to be a handful of people that will be quick to believe that, and they are going to run with that Mary had an affair with Cameron, and that Cameron was basically victimized by Mary, and like he took advantage of her, he brainwashed her, she brainwashed him, she took advantage of him, and she brainwashed him, and but Mary's not there to defend herself. So then we have a cute segment about the kids of, Salt Lake City. And then Whitney asked if she was living Whitney was asked, are you living vicariously through your daughter? Because she's really pushing her daughter to like be free and wild and do whatever you want. And it's okay. And go live it up in college and don't hold back and do whatever you want. So they were like, are you trying to live vicariously through your daughter? Because when you were her age, you were so restricted by your family and your religion. And Whitney said she just wants her daughter to get out all of that wild child, all of that free spirit, to get it out now so she doesn't have to be, in her 40s and 50s trying to be wild and relive her younger years. And then somebody asked her, well, is that what you're doing now? And she admitted it. She's like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing now. Reliving the youth that I missed out on. So then we go into the segment where it was all about, you keep your friends close, but you keep your enemies closer if you can even figure out who the hell your enemies are. So then Jen says Lisa was hurt by Meredith's friendship with Mary. So I think they were talking about the whole tirade that Lisa did. And Jen Shaw said, well, you did it because, you were just ranting and raving because you were really hurt by the friendship that was going on between Meredith and Mary. Lisa said, no, it had nothing to do with the friendship between Meredith and Mary. Okay, this whole entire season, sweetheart, you constantly brought up how Meredith was a better friend to Mary than she was to you. And now you're sitting on that reunion couch saying, no, it had nothing to do with that. Like, what is going on here with Lisa? So Whitney said that Lisa's whole tirade was fueled by Meredith standing up for Mary and not her. Meredith has been making her case. So throughout the whole reunion, in little tiny bits and pieces placed strategically, at different intervals, Meredith has been proving her point that she has been just as good a friend to Lisa as she ever was to Mary. She'll ask Lisa about a specific event, and say, okay, when this and this happened to you, was I not there for you? And Lisa would admit, yes, Meredith, you were there for me. And then at another time, Meredith will ask her, well, when you were going through this situation in your life, was I not there for you? And then Lisa would say, yes, Meredith, you were there for me. So in certain intervals throughout the reunion, Meredith has been slowly and meticulously proving her case that she has been a good friend to Lisa, just as she was to Mary. So Andy says, well, I think a huge barrier in Lisa's and Meredith's friendship was Lisa's friendship with Jen, because we all know how Jen and Meredith had their huge falling out, and Lisa continued to be friends with Jen, and that kind of bothered Meredith, that Lisa refused to check Jen and refused to hold Jen to the fire with all the stuff that Jen had done to Meredith. So Meredith began to cry. And Meredith called Lisa. She says she called Lisa 3 days before her father died to let her know that the situation was not going to get any better with her father. Lisa never called to check on her, didn't respond, because Lisa was so busy trying to be best BFFs with Jen Shaw. So 2 days after her father died, Meredith had reached out to Lisa and invited her to Shabbat dinner. And Meredith said, all you wanted to do was attack me to get closer to Jen. So you were just using me, throwing me under the bus, just so you and Jen can have some type of common ground and build your friendship from there. So Meredith was really hurt by Lisa's lack of sympathy. And then Heather said, Lisa called me after my dad died and said, well, I hope your dad is feeling better. And I think Heather just brought this up just to show that Lisa doesn't care about anybody. Lisa only cares about Lisa. And maybe on a good day, she cares about her family. But she doesn't care about anybody or anything other than herself. If it's not related to her directly, she could care less. And she only wants to talk about other people when she's throwing them under the bus. So Heather brought that up. In my opinion, she had brought that up to be like, she's so unaware of what's going on with her little friend group here that she calls me after my father dies to ask me how my father's doing. And then Lisa said that she had no idea that her father had passed away. And I feel like with this group, I think they're on the same text group. They're on the same email group. I'm pretty sure if Heather told one, she told them all when her father passed away. So then Meredith pulls out her phone and she starts reading the text that she has sent to Lisa when she was trying to reach out to Lisa for support. She was really just crying out to Lisa, hey, I really need you to be my friend. I'm really needing your support right now. And then Meredith said, and those were the things that and then so after she read the text, that she had sent to Lisa when she was reaching out to Lisa, wanting Lisa to be there for her, that's when Lisa goes on this tirade saying those really horrible, disgusting things about Meredith. So Lisa got very defensive. Instead of just hearing out Meredith, who's been through quite a bit, instead of just listening to her, this is the reunion. This is where you're trying to clean up your reputation, not make it worse. Okay, the whole entire season you look like complete garbage. Now this is your chance to prove that you're not garbage, that you're not what these ladies are accusing you of being. And so just close your mouth, open your ears, and just listen to what's going on around you, Lisa. And then just say, okay, I hear you, and I'm sorry. She can't do that. She has to be defensive, extremely defensive. And so she gets very defensive and she starts making up excuses of why she didn't reach out and why she wasn't there for Meredith and so on and so forth. And then Andy was like, look, you have to take a breath so that you can absorb what Meredith just read to you. And Andy was like, this is not, your defensiveness, it's not landing with her. And then Lisa goes, well, it's not landing with me either. And I'm like, she says, and then she tells Lisa, and then she tells Meredith, I know I was there for you. I was there for you. If she felt like you weren't, try to understand why she would feel that way. If you were there for her 100%, Lisa, then ask her, okay, you reached out to me. I responded. You wanted me to do this and that for you, and I did. Where was I not there for you? Ask her. Instead of just, blatantly coming out with, I was there for you and you're wrong, I'm right. No, it doesn't work like that. This woman is in pain. She is also in pain for y'all's friendship breaking up. No matter, even if she got closer to Mary, she still hurts about the friendship that she lost with you. Now it's the time to talk about it and try to resolve it. And she's still not willing to be a friend. So then we go into the tirade. So Andy reads everything that Lisa had said when she had her tirade, and she was talking about Meredith and her family being broke and her husband not working, or switching jobs every 5 minutes, and she's slept with half of New York, and they're just her and her family are just posers. All of that. Randy read it verbatim, word for word. And so Lisa goes, "Well, that's a lot." Yeah, girl, it was a lot. It was a lot for everybody. Uh-huh. What you gotta say about that? So Meredith had a hard time watching it. She said that when it aired, she could only watch it in snippets because it was a lot. Yeah, I totally understand. If somebody was going on and on and on about me and my family, and it was as disgusting as it was, I would not have watched it at all. I would have probably watched the first 30 seconds of it, and I would have been done. So Meredith says it took her an hour to get through it, and then Meredith commented on how Lisa was not there for her so-called friend Jen when she was arrested. So yeah, that was another thing. That was another big thing. Jen got arrested. She was trying to build this friendship with Jen, and Jen gets arrested, and then Lisa just disappears. She can't be bothered because she's so worried about how it would make her look if she decided to be there for Jen and support Jen. How would this affect her reputation? And how, in the scheme of things, does she have any kind of business involvement with Jen, and is she going to get dragged into Jen's problems? That's all she cared about, was herself. Jen needed a friend. Lisa was not there. Lisa had said several times, I need to just, I need to digest this. When Jen was trying to reach out to her, when people were asking Lisa, why aren't you there for Jen? And she was like, I need a moment. I need a moment. I need a moment. I just need to, think about this. That's not being a friend, Lisa. You have no clue on what it is to be a friend. And maybe nobody was a friend to you. Maybe as a child, you were alone, you were isolated or ostracized. Who knows? Maybe you never saw what a good friendship was. But you need to admit that you're not really there for other people, and you don't know what it means to be a good friend. So then Andy says, well, it seems like it was a truth dump. I think they went back talking about her tirade on Meredith. So Andy says, it seems like it was a truth dump. You just had a lot to get off your chest. And then Lisa said, no, it wasn't. And then Whitney said, well, you said those things before we even began filming. That's exactly how you felt. Because Lisa was trying to make it seem like that she just had a lapse in judgment, a lapse in clarity, a lapse in sanity when she went on this tirade about Meredith. Like, something just triggered her, and she just went off, and she was like kind of like a blackout moment. And then leave it to Whitney to hold you to the truth. Whitney said, but you had said those very same things before you were even filmed. You had said those things. And so Lisa apologized, and she said that it had been building up in her over a period of time. And then she victimizes herself. She makes herself out to be the victim instead of the true victim, which is Meredith. She made herself appear to be the victim. So Heather says, well, we're not crucifying you for having that moment. It was just we were just reacting on all the things that you did, because I think Lisa was like, I had this moment. Now everyone, is crucifying me, or everyone is, making me out to be some evil person because I had this, this really out of control moment, out of body experience. And then Heather was like, it's not just that one moment. We can forgive you for having a moment. It was just that you have a lot of moments where you hurt us. And so Lisa then accuses Heather. She tells Heather, well, you're the one that told me that Meredith really wasn't my friend, that Meredith was not there for me. And then Heather explained herself and said, yes, that's true. Yes, I did do that. I did say that to you because she was not showing up for you unconditionally. She says, for example, me and Jen Shaw, we've had our issues. She said a lot of horrible things about me. But then when she went through this really tough time, I put that all aside, and I still was there for her. I was still there to support her when she was going through her dark moment. So I was just trying to make a point that whenever you go through something, Meredith doesn't show up for you like the way that I would show up unconditionally for Jen. She wasn't like, hey, Meredith is a horrible person, stay away from her. She was just pointing out, hey, yeah, you claim that you went through whatever you went through, and Meredith really wasn't there for you. She was just stating a fact, I guess. So Lisa has a breakdown. And oh, by the way, what Heather said, I thought that was a really good spin because she knew that she was kind of, it made her look really, really bad for her, for Lisa to point that out that, hey, wait a minute. You're telling me that I did Meredith wrong, but you were there telling me that Meredith really wasn't my friend. And then Heather spent that really, really good. So, anyways, Lisa has a breakdown. She's like, everybody's trying to break me down, and I'm done with that. She starts crying. She just has this really crazy emotional moment. And then Whitney says, well, in these moments, just stop talking and listen. And then Andy says, so where do you guys stand, you and Meredith? So Lisa once again apologizes to Meredith. Meredith says, you know what, like always, like she says, like you always say, I'm going to process it. I'm processing it. So Lisa said that she was in a moment of rage. Whitney says, but you took your mic off. You deliberately took off your mic. And then Meredith says, Meredith was so then they move on, and then they talk about how Meredith was at the finale, as she's walking out of the event with her husband. She was like, well, wouldn't these women like to know the information that I have on them? I happen to know all the people that they've all slept with, alluding to the fact that some of these women have been cheating on their husbands, so on and so forth. So Andy was like, so when you said that, you were basically threatening to expose everybody. And at first, Meredith denied it, and then she kind of admitted it. She was like, yeah, she admits that she was using these secrets that she knows about these women, that she was using it as a threat in order for people just to leave her the hell alone. If you don't leave me alone, I'm going to expose your butt. So Meredith and Jen, they asked about, Andy asked, this thing came up that Meredith and Jen were dating the same guy. Both of them are married, but supposedly they were both dating the same guy. And then they both denied it. And then they were like, no, it's not true. I don't believe it. Because Meredith said that her and Seth, they were on a break or something like that. And I don't believe in married people being on a break. Y'all are not some 16-year-old high school couple that's been dating for a couple of weeks. Then you realize, okay, let's take a break. Y'all are an established married couple who've been married for years with children. There's no break. There is no break. Okay, if y'all are having marital issues, you go get counseling, you try to resolve it, or you get a divorce. There is no, we took a break. You're still married. So you went to some lawyer or to the courthouse and you signed something saying, okay, we are temporarily not married, so we're going to go do our thing and then we're going to reconvene at a later date. No, ma'am. There's no such thing as taking a break when you're married. So during the commercial break of the show, Lisa wants a moment with Meredith again, and Meredith refuses to talk to her off camera. She's like, you know what? I'm not doing no off camera conversations with you. If we're going to talk, we're going to talk on camera. So Lisa sits next to her and she starts to apologize again. And she says that she was told that she tells Meredith, well, someone told me that you said, that my house was, you were talking about my home renovations and that my house was really crappy. And so, someone told me that. And so Meredith was like, I didn't talk about your home renovations. I've never said anything about your house. And so Meredith is like, okay, so you believe that because I said something about your home, that gives you justification to go on that horrible rant about me and to, rip my character to shreds because you think I said something about your house? It makes no sense. Like, what the hell? Lisa is obviously lying again. This woman will go to her grave lying. So you believe Meredith says something about your house, which, number one, I don't believe Meredith said anything about Lisa's house. With all the stuff that Meredith has been going through, I don't think she's thinking about Lisa's damn house. But let's assume she says something about her house. It's her opinion. She can say whatever she wants about somebody's house. It would be her own opinion about it. So that's why you're going to call her a slut, talk about her family, talk about her husband being broke, saying that her whole family's fake because she said something, she gave an opinion about your home renovations. That doesn't make any sense, Lisa. If you're gonna lie, at least make it make sense. It makes no sense. So that's the end of that reunion. Y'all, the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City is giving it. It is absolutely giving it. The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, the season was boring except for, the little bit of information, the little tidbits of information we got on Erica's legal issues. The reunion to me of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills was boring. The season was boring. Real Housewives of Salt Lake City is bringing it, and I am here for it. The season was good. The reunion is even better, and I am loving every second of this show. I cannot wait for part 3 when we get deep into Jen Shaw. I am loving the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. I am so glad I started watching this franchise. It is giving me everything I've ever needed and more. Thank you so much. If you made it this far in my review, I appreciate it. I love you for doing that because you decided to spend your time with me, and I do appreciate that more than you'll ever know. If you want to rate the video, go ahead and rate the video, like, dislike, whatever. If you want to drop a comment, drop a comment. Whatever it is, whatever makes you happy, whatever floats your boat. I am just appreciative that you decided to watch this review. Thank you so much, and I will definitely talk to you later. Bye.